My name is Dick Levine, and I am a longtime board member of Progress Texas. It's perfectly obvious after this last election that way too many people are living in an isolated media environment that is just divorced from reality. And Progress Texas is trying to break through, especially among younger people, to try to tell them the truth. It's important to find meaning in the struggle. Albert Camus said that first.
It's Monday, January 27th, 2025, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Donald Trump's promised deportation push began in earnest here in Texas over the weekend. Pooja Salhotra at the Texas Tribune says agents from multiple federal agencies, including U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, along with the DEA, the FBI, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, carried out what they call enhanced targeted operations in both Austin and San Antonio yesterday, with similar operations happening in North Texas and the Rio Grande Valley on Sunday as well. None of these agencies have been quick to answer questions about the scale or long-term plans of these operations. Both the Travis and Bexar County Sheriff's offices said they had no advance notice, nor did Congressman Lloyd Doggett's office. Doggett issued a statement saying, in part, quote, "Dragnet's designed to remove law-abiding, tax-paying residents, many of whom have been here for years, and are parents of American citizen children, do not make us safer. They only make our economy weaker, as much-needed construction workers, health aides, and other workers are detained. Authorizing armed federal immigration agents to enter churches, schools, and hospitals will only create chaos. Like his previous policy, deliberately taking children from their mothers, Trump is making cruelty his principal immigration policy," unquote. Stella M. Chavez at KERA in Dallas says North Texas saw 84 arrests over the weekend. The identities of those detainees so far not documented for the press, though the plan ostensibly is to target undocumented immigrants with criminal histories. Trump border czar Tom Homan has warned of what he calls collateral arrests of other people without legal status, whom ICE may come across during these raids. Protests against Trump's immigration policies have begun rising in various Texas locations, including at the Texas State Capitol in Austin, and an even bigger march in Dallas at the Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge. A pair of Dallas teenagers being credited for sparking that protest, which was forceful, well-attended, and importantly, remained peaceful. Video from both of those protests on Sunday are on our show notes this morning. For those in fear of being targeted in this new push from federal law enforcement, we remind you to know your rights, have a plan for the worst with your family, and to get in touch with your relevant consulate office and local immigrant advocacy organizations operating where you live. For protesters, we admire and celebrate your exercise of your constitutional rights. We think we'll see more and more of this, and we remind you to keep things peaceful and lawful. Back to the Capitol and the 89th legislative session, the push for private school vouchers is well underway. The Senate proposal unveiled on Friday, Senate Bill 2, would let families use $10,000 of state funds per student towards private school tuition and other approved education expenses, which might seem like a lot of money, but critics, including David DeMatthews of the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy at UT Austin, says that's not nearly enough for parents to cover all costs associated with private schooling. Thus, it doesn't really create a pathway for their kids. The Senate proposal extends eligibility to all Texas students, including those whose families have already put them into private school. For those families, this is very directly a state-funded subsidy for private schools, who, we remind you, generally don't have to accept any student they choose to exclude. DeMatthews predicts the Senate's plan would thereby create a, quote, dollar system where public schools will be educating virtually every child with a disability, especially a child with autism or an intellectual disability, unquote. Thus, for public schools, harder work with diminished funding with which to get that important work done. Another area those of us who value science and medical expertise will want to follow: the rising influence of anti-vaxxers in the Capitol. Terry Langford at the Texas Tribune says the rise to power in the Trump administration of notorious vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has emboldened like-minded orgs, including Texans for Vaccine Choice, to more openly lobby Texas Republicans, resulting in more than 20 bills along that line of thinking being filed that would make it easier for parents to opt out of vaccinations, prevent across-the-board vaccine mandates from being enacted or enforced. Give the Texas legislature final approval on any new vaccinations required by schools. Make it more difficult for all Texans to get updated COVID-19 vaccinations, and more. All of this happening as a study by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, now under the Trump regime, of course, recently determined that the immunization of children born between 1994 and 2023 has saved $540 billion by preventing illness and hospitalizations, and has prevented more than 1.1 million deaths. And while more than 90% of kindergarten and 7th grade students in Texas have had the vaccines required for those age groups at present, Texas is outpacing national averages for vaccine exemptions being claimed by the parents of our kindergartners. As targeted diseases, meanwhile, begin to regain a foothold. Whooping cough is now returning to pre-pandemic levels. Measles, after having officially been eliminated in the United States at the beginning of the decade, has returned, typically brought home after international travel. And polio, another disease we thought we'd seen the last of, has been detected in New York State wastewater. Let's get Elon in here before we wrap up. Everybody's seen the world's richest man and Texas's most notorious transplant give the most emphatic Nazi salute any of us have ever seen by now. Hitler himself would have preferred something a bit more crisp, but the enthusiasm was sure evident. That was followed by a series of Nazi jokes on Twitter that was apparently meant to smooth things over. Didn't work. What you may have missed is the latest, that even amidst all of this Nazi drama, Emma Victoria Farr at Reuters says Musk made a surprise appearance on Saturday via a video link at a rally for the far-right German AfD party, addressing a hall of 4,500 people about what he refers to as preserving German culture. In part, Musk said, quote, "Children should not be guilty of the sins of their parents, let alone their great-grandparents. There is too much focus on past guilt, and we need to move beyond that," apparently referring to Germany's Nazi past. AfD leader Alice Weidel thanked Musk as a proxy for the Trump administration, drawing a direct link between that administration and Germany's most notorious neo-Nazi organization. By the way, this rally provoked protests larger by orders of magnitude than what we saw this weekend in Texas over immigration. Despite very cold winter weather, anti-far-right protesters came out in huge force on Saturday, with over 100,000 gathering around Berlin's Brandenburg Gate and up to 20,000 in Cologne. These are people who've experienced fascism in their country firsthand, and they're not keen to repeat it. Americans should take heed. Finally, this Monday, the January 6th pardons, a great number of people who had been convicted of attempting to overthrow our democracy and assaulting law enforcement officers in the process, are back at home here in Texas today. We're at a stage where our communities must see to our own security, and that means being aware of who these people are and what they're up to. I'm not talking about harassment. I'm not talking about doxing or any of that. I'm talking simply about keeping an eye on potential problems, as we would any other problem in our neighborhoods. Beth Dalby at Patch has posted an article including a full list of the 123 January 6 defendants from Texas, and in most cases, their hometowns. See that link in the show notes and be aware of what's happening near you and yours at all times, as you should be doing already. Our funding here at Progress Texas is rarely sufficient for us to plan much more than a quarter or two ahead, but the conservative disinformation machine has no obstacle. They're funded by oil and tech billionaires and religious right-wing activist groups. Our regular everyday listeners form a key component of our funding here at Progress Texas. So if that's you, we could use your support as a monthly contributor. No amount is too small. Go to progresstexas.org/donate. Thanks to Darby Lockridge, Joanna Russo-Cade, and Lisa Craig, all three of whom have done exactly that lately. We appreciate all of y'all. While you're at the website, make sure and grab the merch to match your progressive values at our web store. Y'all means all Revolution, and our most popular Humans Against Ted Cruz t-shirts, all union printed right here in Texas. All great Valentine's gift ideas as well, all at progresstexas.org. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Monday, January 27th, 2025. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Progress Texas is a nonprofit rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.